And so whatever it is, however uncomfortable it might be, and tough, and it is going to be tough at times, always carry in the back of your mind, nothing is more powerful than spirit, and a spirit connected to source.
You are now listening to the highlight reel builder for authors, the Going North podcast. I'm your host, certified self-leadership trainer and author of the best-selling book, Stay the Course, Don Brightman. And you're going to be getting some goodies today from the guest that's up next. And today on the highlight reel builder for authors known as GNP, the great, glorious, and glamorous, the Going North podcast, we got one heck of a superstar for you today, my friends. That's right. Today you are in for a treat, folks. My goodness. Another wonderful human being who's part of the Sacred Stories media crew, especially the book Mayhem to Miracles. Today's guest in particular is the director of the Brahma Kumaris Meditation Museums and host of the America Meditating Radio Show. That's right, folks. And this wonderful lady right here serves as an evolutionary leader and was selected by Empower a Billion Women 2020 as one of the 100 most influential leaders of 2015. And she's also a recipient of the President's Lifetime National Community Service Award and a trusted spiritual mentor committed to bridging divides in society. So let's give it up for the sensational, the Jenny from the meditating block, Sister Dr. Jenna. How you doing today, Doc?
I'm in my Zen zone today. I'm doing actually very well. Hello, everyone. So glad that you could join me and Don today.
Oh, yeah. That's right. It's great to have the good doctor. And she's from the DMV, which is even more fabulous. Usually Sacred Story media folks are like all over the country, like hundreds of miles away, but hey, an hour of driving, depending on the traffic, we're good.
Oh, DC has such a different vibe because everybody who comes here wants to progress or move the world forward in a different way, in an external way. And my role has been to impart and impress and sow the seed of sacredness, divinity, but still be in action. A lot of people think spirituality and meditation means to run away in the mountains, but for me it's to run into the city. It's to run into the city full force ahead, carrying your light and your might with you.
Carrying the light and the might. That's what I'm talking about. She's dropping gems already, because it's so darn true. I remember hearing a podcast years ago where one gentleman mentioned that America is one of the best places for spiritual development, because what better place to test how strong your faith is and how strong your spirit is in a land of plenty where basically everything's at your fingertips.
It's different because I've been to over 95 countries now, and countries that we deem developing where maybe the GPA is not very high. I've seen a sparkle of happiness in their eyes, and they don't have a lot going on, but they're happy. And so I come home and I see us with everything and we're still complaining. So it goes to show that there is a need for a spiritual refueling of the souls in particularly our land of America. And I think the pandemic has started to refuel some souls that have gotten empty. And I'm glad that, this book that has come out, Mayhem to Miracles, which has this compilation of so many inspiring stories of people who have just been through hell and back and how they're able to just bounce back. It's because of their spiritual force, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, that's right. You can say that again today. She's preaching already, y'all. That's right. It's so darn true. So in your wonderful story, freaking love the title. From Disco Queen to Divine Angel. My goodness. Folks will be like, really? Disco Queen? This lady right here? It's like, what inspired the title? Because when you read the story, it's like, wow, it's like two lives in one. It's like from yin to yang, or from light to dark, or from red to blue as in colors, not political parties. It ain't that type of conversation. Just wanted to throw that part out there.
Yeah. I think they came up with the title after they heard my story. Some of us have the ability to live many lives in one. I was one of those individuals where I had the exposure of a world of anything that you wanted, you just go for it, on the physical level. And I think there was either something preordained, recorded in the personality of the soul, or it just could be a calling that kept nudging inside of the soul. And at a particular period or time in my life, that recorded came to pass, where it manifested, the awakening of the soul. So from back in those days when, you were running after the illusions and chasing after shells, there was an excitement to it, there was a pleasure to it, there was a power to it. But then there were those times when there was no need for you to chase after the shells, and you were just sitting on your couch and you were just thinking about your life and the people in your life and wondering if it's all worth it, if it all has meaning or value. And I think that's when the calling really gets louder, when you start to identify those thoughts inside of your head. And at some point in time, either it will be love or tragedy or just the right time. The call or the volume on your call will go a little bit louder, and you just have to answer the call. And I answered the call in my 20s, and it's been a wonderful journey ever since. And I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for every process of my spiritual journey that I've been on. Sometimes maybe a show like this, people are wondering, what is spirituality or what is consciousness? They have these questions. And spirituality basically means you are going to be more aware, more in tune to experiencing the real essence of your soul. So when you're on the journey of spirituality, you're experiencing the interior world more than allowing the outside world to give you an experience. So if, for whatever reason, you can start to value your thoughts from within you and connect them to the original nature of the soul, the love and the purity and the peace that we really all are, then imagine what that energy would be like when you bring that through your five senses and offer it in your career, in your podcasts. You offer it in the way you dress, the way you carry your hair, the way you meet and greet other people. Then that energy that you've been serving cannot be hidden. Then it comes through the senses, and you're not dependent on the outside trying to give you an experience to feel as if you're alive or not. So my awakening or my call was that I started to listen more on the inside.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about indeed. And it's really powerful that you've been able to really discover that in your 20s and still going strong with it decades later, and with all the body of work that you're creating as a result. My goodness. And spirituality, if I'm not mistaken, you actually grew up in a home where there were two, I guess, I wouldn't say opposing sides, but two different, I guess, beliefs. I believe your father, he practiced one faith and your mother practiced another faith. So do you believe that may have had an influence on where you are today?
Definitely, Don, definitely. My father was Hindu, my mother was Roman Catholic, and then later on she became a Brahma Kumaris, which is the spiritual tradition that I belong to. And my spiritual tradition isn't trying to declare or tell anyone that we have a handle on all the answers of life. My spiritual tradition just basically says I'm comfortable with my tribe. And my tribe has certain gifts that it has offered me, and it has also told me that we can't squeeze God in a religion, and that we're at this particular point that our energy or our need to reconnect to the source of power and the source of love is upon us now. And so when I saw my parents being so different, I think it gave me permission to explore and recognize that if I was going to have a deep or intimate relationship with God, it had everything to do with my interpretation or perception of the energy. It didn't have to do with a religion or a non-religious lifestyle. It had to do with the way the soul shows up in wanting to recognize where the source of power is. You know, we're living our lives because we do want power. The power to wake up in the mornings, the power to make right decisions, the power to eat well, the power to manage our relationships, the power to earn money, the power to live a life that we dream of. But we find that there's something in the soul that somehow is holding back that power from fully manifesting what we wish for. So for me, my understanding so far is that my connection and my intimate relationship with God isn't public, but it's definitely important, and it's something that I must do every day to rekindle and to deepen so that the energy and the vibration of God's vibe can flow through me in everything I do. Walking, talking, eating, sleeping, making a decision, collaborating, running the museums, dealing with the fact that they're still closed during the pandemic. It's almost 2 years and we're still financing the museums. So, you know, it takes a lot of insight to think about how to keep navigating life. And you need a lot of clarity for that and a lot of insight so that the fear doesn't block your state of mind and you can make a decision that helps yourself and everyone else.
Yes, indeed. I love what you said there. The fact that we can't squeeze God into a religion because really, God, really, that makes no sense trying to squeeze him into one religion. Another reason why I consider myself a non-denominational Christian because it makes no sense to focus on, oh yeah, you have to be a Baptist or whatever. Oh, forget Christianity, you have to be Muslim, Islam, you have to follow this. Like, hey, it's actually, he's actually bigger than all of that. Like, religion is a man-made construct. God is always is been since the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. It's like, hey, trying to box him in, it just makes no sense. And then just having the lack of fear to making sure that you really allow God's vibe to flow through you. I love it. I love it. That's right. She's a poet and she knows it, y'all. That's right.
Interesting, because we're at a particular period now where some of the churches, the synagogues, the mosques are slowly opening up, and still we have to go to these places wearing our masks and maybe social distancing and all of these good things. And yet we survived 1.5 years without them. And so what did that say? Yeah, we had online, and that online was serving us. But then, you ever wondered why when you turn off the screen, you realize you were just talking to a blank screen the whole time? It's all up here. And so what is the conversation that you're having with yourself? Those thoughts on a day-to-day basis. And what intention do you bring forth in your dialogue with other people? What do you want from people? Or what are you here to share with someone? I found that most relationships that don't stand on a strong foundation is where two people are wanting to take from each other rather than just share with each other. And so when we transform the mentality of taking to sharing, to giving, to offering, let me offer the gifts that I'm receiving from the divine in our moment together, I walk away with no expectations from you. There's nothing that I need, because it's in my offering and sharing I was receiving anyway, you know? So I think that we're at a particular profound time in our story of life that the world is going to become our temple. And the energy of the divine will be aware or available to all of us, and it will only be a thought away. And you can still go to the beach and still go to your parties and still eat and play and dream as much as you want. But then you will bring more of that divinity into that. You will bring more of the sacred in that. And as you were saying, you know, when you start to identify yourself as one thing, whether it's black, white, Indian, Hindu, Christian, Jew, you've already separated yourself from 95% of the world, because somehow, somewhere you think you're better than everyone else. So one of the most important part of my philosophy is to consider yourself a soul. And when you consider yourself a soul, the question is what type? Pure, loving, peaceful, powerful, immortal, eternal, imperishable. So when you are engaging that consciousness and energy with another being, it's all good, it's clear. You're not expecting anything from this conversation other than to be as authentic and truthful as you can be. And you're just allowing that moment to be of service. And then there'll be another scene. And then there'll be another scene. Then there'll be another scene. So it's like we're being given a chance now to create as many beautiful scenes in our lives if we're able to, somehow fine-tune the intent of why I show up. And I'm doing that so much even as I speak to you. I've been really focusing on, am I coming from the purest place possible in the choices that I make? And I can see sometimes that I still have a little motive of what I want for me, what is in it for me, rather than what is the divine? What would be the most divine way of doing this? What would love want out of this moment? And it would be something so much more, broader in its quality of existence rather than your little world of, well, I got my share, you can go on, So I think we're at this point now that, I know the numbers, the likes, the followers, the shares, and all of that, it claims that it determines the success of a program, a book, a TV show, a movie. Yeah, it does grab something. There's something that grabs people when it touches something very deep in them. And I've noticed there's two vibrations that can do that. There's a vibration that seems to be of a different frequency that feeds into an acronym called A.L.G.A.E that I use regularly. A for anger, L for lust, G for greed, A for attachment, and E for ego. It's in the book, Mayhem to Miracles. And so that energy, when you serve it, it's everywhere. It's in the movies, it's in politics, it's in the news, it's in your family, it's in your next door neighbor. So it's a very easy energy to serve because it's omnipresent. But I'm invested in the energy of the reconstruction of humanity, the continuity of humanity, which is the opposite to A.L.G.A.E. So the opposite to anger is that you would speak peacefully. The opposite to lust is that there'd be more innocence in your motives. The opposite to greed is that there'll be joy and contentment in what you decide to do. The opposite to attachment would be love. And the opposite to ego would be wisdom and truth. Same soul, but that soul has a choice what energy it wishes to feed the most. When I transformed, as in the book, Mayhem to Miracles, from disco queen to divine angel, I'm the same person. I'm living in the same building. Imagine just every New Year we used to go to the Empire State Building just for fun as a family from DC. And sometimes the queue is really long, and one time we were there and the queue was so long, and my brother went shopping to buy boots at Bally's, and we all stayed in the queue and was laughing and talking, and we could smell the streets, we could see the faces, we saw the yellow taxis, we saw the buildings. And as we kept moving up the building, the sound changed, and when we went to the top of the building, it was a completely different atmosphere. So I think one of the things I love about the book, I feel like every author that donated their experience in that book took us from the ground level of what they were going through to the top and where they had reached. So one of the hardest things to do is to articulate to somebody the experience that you're having from the top. It's a little bit easier to do it from the bottom, but at the top, unless they have traveled with you, they will never understand the sweetness of that experience. So on the path of meditation and on the path of spirituality, it's a very quiet journey to the top of your consciousness, which you will never be able to tell somebody that they should come here with you and join you. They have to take the journey on their own and when they're ready. You know, you just have to keep living your existence and you know what it feels like. And so I think you sometimes carry a deeper responsibility in knowing that you hold that experience.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Man, love this woman right here. My goodness, my goodness. So many things to unpack there. So many things to unpack. Especially one thing that really caught my eye when you mentioned fine tuning your intent. And I feel like that's one of the things I feel like
You
is
can
what a lot
resonate,
of,
right?
yeah, it
Yeah, me
really
too.
resonates.
And it's not that we mean bad, you know, growing up we were supposed to run after the money, the position, the status, the house, the car, the look, the vibe, and I don't think we should give up that pursuit. I think there's something exciting about seeing if you can get there. But what I think is really important is that we value the real moments of our lives as we're traveling in that direction, that you keep checking in with yourself. Is this real? Is this true? You know, am I doing this for the right reasons? And then maybe it'll be less numbers, maybe it'll be less show, but then maybe you'll be happier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and maybe it will be enough. I've got this 5-week course coming up on the Shift Network, and it's been sort of in the making for the last month, and I had no idea I had to come up with so much information, things that I've never done before, like ask people to endorse and tell folks how good I am, and you know, sign up for this and pay for that, and I'm like, I don't do that. I don't know how to do it. And the organizers behind the scenes putting it together were saying, we have done so many of these programs and we have featured so many spiritually evolved people, but we've never met somebody that shows up with just such a genuine sincerity. And it was so refreshing for them. And so even though I've got this 5-week course coming up, and I would love for your audience to look into it on americameditating.org, I haven't done that. I haven't sat with a group of people and just been with them, you know, like that. So again, it showed up. And whether it's going to be 1,000 people or one person, I'm still going to show up. If you ask me what I would love 1,000 people to show up. But, okay, let's see, you know. So we have so many choices now, Dawn. We've got like a million options. And where do you choose from when 95% of the civilization is chasing after shells? And they're chasing after desires that sometimes, if something is very meaningful shows up in front of them, they might miss it because they're not used to it. So I'm just hoping that we'll slow down enough to identify what is real from what is an illusion.
Ah, love it indeed. So y'all better check that out indeed, because it's gonna be fun on the bun and a transformational experience. And heck, even another thing I love that you mentioned in your ALGE acronym, especially at the end with the ego, instead of a lot of folks may think, oh, the opposite, oh yeah, just being humble, but instead you said wisdom and truth. So what led to that as opposed to just the word humble, as a lot of folks may think of?
I think wisdom and truth actually will feed humility, because when you're filled with enough experience of knowledge, enough of the experience of the core essence of the soul, when you are carrying deep internal truths that are universal, it humbles you. Actually, individuals who are lacking something are the ones who, you know, express their ego a lot more than somebody who's humble. The humble ones stay more quiet, you know, and in the back because they're so full. I'm half Jamaican and half Indian, and there's a saying in Jamaica that says, an empty barrel carries a lot of noise. I always remember that. I always remember that one because it's very true. Anyway, all I'm saying is to the audience and to everyone out there, you're at one of the most powerful periods of your life. And whether you're going through a challenging relationship, or maybe your finances aren't doing so well, or maybe your health needs some attention, just don't be scared. That's a time when, you need to really pick yourself up and look into the mirror and say, I got this. And you must always remind yourself, always, nothing outside of you is more powerful than your soul. And especially your soul connected to Source. Nothing is bigger than that. And so whatever it is, however uncomfortable it might be, and tough, and it is going to be tough at times, always carry in the back of your mind, nothing is more powerful than spirit. And a spirit connected to Source. Nothing. And just keep going until that light disseminates all of those illusions and attachments to illusions that are saying, I'm even tired of you. And let that light burn them out of the way so that you can be set free.
Ah, love it indeed, love it indeed. So, since this is far from your first rodeo and you're also a show host, this is one of the occasions where it's like, hey, the situation's flipped. So, is there a question that you wish should be asked more often when you're in wonderful interviews like this, where you get to be in a metaphorical hot seat, not have to be the host per se?
Um, I think that it's just beautiful for us to listen really well so that we can pick up where a conversation is at and where it can go based on my own personal curiosity to life. One of the things that I'm focusing a lot on, as I mentioned, is purifying my intentions. So there's a constant observation taking place of the choices that I'm making. And the second thing is to deepen the understanding and the awareness that God is this energy of light. And that if we can only bring that light into the awareness of the soul will then reduce and let go of a lot of blockages that's holding it back from financial wealth, healthy relationships, and healthy physical being in the physical body. And so I wish that we would feel safe and comfortable to talk more about the energy of God and not be afraid of it. Like I said earlier, he doesn't belong to any religion. You can't squeeze him in it. And what's wrong if we try to investigate this energy more and begin to feel the power of its existence? So I thought it would be nice to sometimes have more safe, open conversations about things like that rather than, who the Talibans are killing next and, who got away with robbing the bank, or, which politician is crooked and who isn't, and all of this algae conversation, all of this algae choice, all of this algae vibration isn't leaving a legacy behind for our future generations. It's almost as if we've squeezed the orange out so much and then we're giving our kids the squeezed orange. It just feels like we could do better than that. So if we can just incorporate a little bit more intimacy in our connection to Source, I think the world would be a better place.
Amen to that. Love the visual aid of the squeezed orange because it's so true now, especially. It's probably another reason why the generations are, well, at least the Gen Zs and the millennials are kind of the way they are now because it's like, oh, wow, I guess we're getting a squeezed orange now. Folks haven't figured out how to separate their differences a bit and focus on the things that matter like just caring for your fellow neighbor that's with you and just really focusing on being the best human you can be and helping out your fellow human as opposed to starting random wars with people and focusing on what sadly if something that bleeds it leads, like that's too much nonsense. That's really trying to be programmed into the masses, but it's really a shame. But the good thing is like we have opportunities with wonderful programs like yours, the Going North podcast, and countless others where we can actually have that choice, have that option to choose not to put that nonsense in front of our faces or in our ears.
Yeah. And it's like, the more I look at my journey and the journey of the friends that I have all around me, it's like the story had to be of that. It had to have that A.L.G.A.E written in the script to make it what it is today. The question is, what side of the coin are you going to, be? Where are you going to serve? What's the energy that's going to call you more? And I think for many of us, we deeply want to be called towards a more softer, spiritually empowered sense of existence.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Definitely could say that again. Definitely could say that again indeed. That's right. Yes, indeed. That's right. This one's a powerhouse, yo. I'm telling you. She's a powerhouse. She's been dropping gem after gem. It's like we have a whole necklace of gems right now, folks. You already passed the tennis bracelet metaphorically of all the gems she's sharing, but definitely got to check out all the stuff that she's doing indeed. So we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but you're still in the current year, 2021, with all of your knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
I would definitely tell myself to pay attention to my thinking. It's everything.
Yes,
That's it.
indeed.
That's it. No PhD needed for that one. That was all I would do. That's all I would do. You were
There you
expecting
go.
an encyclopedia, right?
Sometimes, yes. Some people try to think a lot deeply with it, talk for like 5, 10 minutes about it. Some folks just, oh yeah, one sentence, this is it.
That's it for me, everyone. I think our greatest asset is our thinking, our thoughts, and we're not serving it as much as we can. So I tell myself at 25, value every thought that you have, and if you happen to mess up with a thought, have 14 more better thought than that one.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
What would you tell your 25-year-old self?
Let's see here. Well, there's like so many things, but the classic answer I usually give to that one is to stay in motion when it comes to the body, the mind, and the spirit, especially the body, so that way it can make sure I don't get a little too sluggish. Because, some folks put on the COVID 20 and suppose the COVID 19. And I'm not talking about the virus, I'm just talking about the pounds.
I know, I too, I've been wanting to lose about 10, 15 pounds, but I don't know if it's because of COVID, but I definitely would love to. It's important to keep the body healthy, and the body will be healthy if the mind. A lot of us eat out of emotions because something is lacking in the soul. And so the type of food that we choose, the amount of food we choose, and the frequency of the food we choose has to do with the emotional state of mind that we're in. There's a saying in my tradition, as is the food, so is the mind. And so if you can feed your body, feed your mind the right thoughts, then more than likely you'll also make the choice to have the right types of food. So when you have the right types of food, that's not coming from a lack of some emotion, but a fullness of your spirit, then you won't overeat and you'll keep your body in a good particular condition. But sometimes too, it's just hormonal, things are just changing in you and you're going to put on a few extra pounds. But let it not be that I just give up on myself and I just don't care anymore. And sometimes we get like that we're like, I don't care, I can't stop this eating or I can't stop this. But check what thought you might need to stop and then see if it can help.
Yeah, check which thought that you might need to stop indeed. Well, one of the thoughts that we probably need to gain is by listening to the American Meditating Radio Show with you, Sister Dr. Jenna, indeed. So that's right, folks. Pick up some copies of this book, Mayhem to Miracles. Tell your friends about it. Tell your cat about it. Tell a penguin about it. Heck, even tell a camel about it, especially if it's on hump day, and put a giant, like, I don't know. Let's put a meditating statue on the camel hump, too. That's right, folks. And say, hey, I'm meditating. It's America meditating. It's right. And Sister Dr. Jenna's got some fabulous stuff for your travels indeed. So once again, for the folks who need to keep in contact with you, what's the best way for folks to do so?
AmericaMeditating.org.
That's right.
That's it. It has everything there.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. AmericanMeditating.org, y'all. Check it out like a library book. Check it out like 17 library books indeed. Sweet. So, any parting words for the folks before we close up shop?
I think it's a good time to listen to your heart. Listen to those deep longings that are coming up inside. Write them down, read them over, maybe record them on your smartphone, hear them back, and then make decisions. They might be to sustain where you are. It might be to make a difference or a change, but it's all going to be okay. No matter what choice you make, at the end of the day, it'll be okay. And so I can only urge each person listening to our conversation today is don't get too caught up in what others seem to be doing. Just turn your attention inwards and talk to God and ask love. Love, what do you need of me? And your answer will appear.
Thanks a bunch for listening to this podcast episode. Hope you really enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe to this show if you haven't already, because more greatness is coming your way. And if you're so inclined, be sure to share with at least 3 other people in your network, so that way more folks can catch the fire that is on the Going North podcast. Keep winning at life and advance others to advance yourself.